Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Shane, since the county still has the microphone and you have it firmly in your hand, would you mind telling everybody, you're involved with, is it Project 17, is that what that is called?
Yes.
Would you mind telling them a little bit about Project 17?
Of course. Thank you, Blake. Project 17 came about a year ago through the legislative process, in which at the time 6 senators that represented the region in southeast Kansas that comprises the 17 counties. Miami County is the northernmost county of that, but would go down to Cherokee County, over into Montgomery County, and then come back up through Franklin and such. Senator Pat Apple at the time represented a considerable portion of that area there as far as Miami County, Lynn County was concerned. We've been involved in that, but basically what they were able to do was to secure over $1 million worth of funding through grants in the Kansas Leadership Foundation. And we have an upcoming meeting. What they're trying to do is foster leadership development in each of the counties and then subsequently the communities for better governance and to reverse some of the economic decline. Statistically, southeast Kansas is a little bit of a boat anchor on the state of Kansas when they go through the demographic aspect of it and the economic output. I don't believe that Miami County reflects those same demographics, but by hook or crook, so to speak, we're included into that district. As such, we're trying to take advantage of some of the funding opportunities that presents, and on Tuesday there'll be a meeting there for people that are interested in leadership and development of that. In addition, the executive director that was hired by that group, Heather Morgan, resides here in Miami County. She had moved into the area, and she leads that 17 county group in that endeavor. We'll actually have her come in about a week and be a guest speaker at our Greater Miami County Community Foundation meeting, in which we've incorporated in youth into the leadership from the Osawatomie and the Paola school districts. Look to expand that model out a little bit further, but we're just kind of getting our toes in that water, and she's going to provide us some opportunities where we can enhance those youth leadership opportunities here in Miami County too.
Thank you. The first question that I have, and this can be to obviously any one of you, I'm going to ask each of you kind of to respond. You shared a lot of good information with us this morning, and I guess the first question that I received was, what do you think is the #1 challenge that each of you face in 2014? So it would be your biggest challenge that you feel like is ahead of you this year.
Selecting a jail site. But I assure you, there will be one chosen. You will be invited to a groundbreaking ceremony, and we will build a new sheriff jail facility. I assure you.
Just dovetail on Commissioner Roberts' comments. I think our overall economy locally, not just the city of Paola, but across Miami County, I think most of you probably opened up your appraisal notices and such a short time back in the yellow envelopes that comes from Stephanie Odell, the appraiser. You probably noticed on the county's aspect of it, we raised our mill levy over 3 mills. We've been in a state of constant decline in terms of our assessed valuation. Reductions in state funding that's been passed through to local government has been drawn back, and it's made it tougher for us to be whole. There's a host of activities as basically an agent of the state, in which the county government is comprised as, that we have to provide those services, and we don't really get a choice to pick which ones we do or do not provide and then subsequently remain economically solvent. But we were able to set monies aside and maintain a significant cash reserve in better years, but that money's about eclipsed itself, and we finally were to the point that we needed to raise that. So I think economic development is of primary importance to me, and the increase of our value throughout all of our communities in the rural area to hopefully reduce that ad valorem tax burden that all of us are carrying.
Thank you. I'm going to hold Rob to that jail site selection. I think I agree economic development's important for jobs, and I also happen to be one that likes infrastructure, probably because I spend a lot of time on the streets. And I'm always happy when we can do more street work and have better things for our citizens to drive on.
Well, I would have to agree with Shane. I think the economy is still going to be one of the major things that all of us are going to have to deal with. We're not sure what's going to happen on the federal and state level, and it certainly concerns us with what we're seeing on the state level and some of the things we're hearing coming out of the state capitol. There could be some real challenges that come out of that, not just for the county, but for the city, for the school district. I think all of us share that. One of the other things in our community that we've identified recently is that our housing stock in the community is at a point where the inventories are down of housing stock, particularly new housing. We've seen some decline in assessed valuation, I think because of our older housing stock and some things we need to do there. So one of our priorities is really going to be to try addressing our housing stock to get more new housing on the market in various price ranges. I think that's going to be important for the growth of this community and some real challenges for the city on how we do some of that.
They all talked about finance, and of course that all relates to all of us, but ours is, I just hope the legislators stabilize school finance. But I want to take on a positive challenge, which is a positive challenge that we do every year, all the time. We never stop, and that is providing the kids the very, very best opportunities. All of the intervention programs that we try to intervene with, and that's kind of like this bond. If we free up some money from projects through the bond, then we have more money to do more interventions and programs for kids. We want all of these kids to have 21st century skills, particularly technology, soft skills, communication, writing skills, those kinds of things. And two of the key words that we talk about all the time is relevance and rigor. Our curriculum needs to be relevant for what they're doing today, and it needs to have rigor so that we can compete in a global world.
I think the most important issue facing the school board right now would be to have a successful bond election to provide additional educational opportunities for our students.
Thank you. Judy, if you wouldn't mind just holding the microphone. You mentioned it, so I'm gonna ask this question. You mentioned Topeka. And we know there are a lot of challenges that sometimes come down to our level on what happens at the State House and then also on the national level. But are there any issues or policies that you're watching closely in Topeka this year? And are there any concerns about the impact those could have on you?
You know that the court case is out there, and that the governor had appealed that because he does not believe that the court system should tell the legislators what to do with school funding. So they're trying to override that court case, and we'll see probably by the end of this month what that is going to look like. I just read this morning an article from the New York Times that is really, really watching Kansas school finance, because they're saying if the governor can change the way the courts word and that he can override through legislation what the courts are asking, then what impact is that going to have across the nation? And we have a 3-branch government right now. That could affect everybody in lots of different topics, not just school finance. So we all kind of want to pay attention to that, not only as it relates to school finance, but as it might impact other areas that might affect you as well.
Joe, we're already same question for the city, please.
Well, as most of you know, over the last couple of years, the state's financial problems have certainly translated themselves down to the local level. And we're watching very closely a number of pieces of legislation. Our legislative policy statement this year, I think, ended up being like 10 pages of bills that we're very, very closely watching and things that we're very concerned about. So it's very hard for me to just say the financial side of things, because one of the other things that we're very concerned about is the state legislature's intervention in local policy decision-making, even going so far as to passing legislation dealing with building inspection. Roofing was one of them we saw last year, where licensing of roofers was changed the entire direction, and the state became more involved in a number of those things that should be local issues. And one of them that's troubled the city council for some time now has been what happened with open carry and with concealed weapons. And the state's intervention on that, and the state's regulation of that, and the state's lack of regulation on that. On the local level, our concern is that that should be a local matter. That should not be something that is done statewide. You talk to your state legislators and they say it was a Western Kansas issue that was pushed on Eastern Kansas, and to get a compromise we did this and this. Wouldn't it make more sense if each community had the ability and the right to make their own decisions on those type of issues? You know, we hear many times from the state, and this is a real concern for, I think, all of us here and every one of you in the room. We hear from the state level time and time again that they don't want the federal government to interfere in states' rights or states' decisions. Shouldn't that translate down from the legislature, from the state legislature, to the local level, where your county commissions, your school boards, your city councils are the ones making the decisions for what's best for the citizens of their communities, or for the patrons of the school district, or for the citizens of the county? It just makes sense, and that seems to be one of our major concerns right now.
We tossed a coin.
It looked
The
like you were-
legislative matter that's pivotal in every county across Kansas is the mortgage registration fee. When you purchase a home and you file a mortgage, you pay a fee to the county register of deeds for the recording, preservation of that document, and those funds are used by law, is placed into the county general fund to pay for the business thereof. Miami County collected last year $514 million and some change. 514,000. I got the million. I'm really good at doing that, ain't I? I wish I could lower your taxes the other way. $514,000. That is real dollar bills. That money is used to take care of the expenses for your register of deeds, your county appraisers department, the county clerk's department, the planning and zoning department, and the treasurer's department. When you file a mortgage, that is not the only location that piece of paper goes to. Now, the legislature, through some advocates, are proposing that that fee be either eliminated, because it's the belief that it's an unfair tax, or rewritten in law. We don't know what either one of those mean, but the county government on Wednesday passed a resolution asking the governor, asking the legislature to keep that revenue neutral. Because the resources we have today are threefold: property taxes, fees, or mortgage registration, and interest. How many of you are making a lot of interest off of your investments today? Oh, no response. Okay, so if we don't collect $500,000 in that, we only have one choice today, and that's go back to the property taxes or eliminate the service. So we have we have a very strong position to make, and we intend to fight it all the way through the legislature to see that that does not go away. That's our front.
Thank you. If you'll just keep the microphone there between you and Shane, because this is a question for the county. And Rob, you mentioned EMS earlier, and glad you're okay and with us still. But emergency service that they provide Right now, that's been consolidated and is outside of the city. It's kind of in the county. Has there been any thoughts about bringing EMS back into each city? And then it seems like, and this, again, I'm trying to paraphrase the question a little bit, some of the dispatch has also been outsourced, is that correct, for EMS? And they just kind of want to know, can you kind of update everybody on how EMS is handled in the county right now?
Yes, thanks, Blake. I'll start with the last portion of it first. The dispatching of EMS service on that was outsourced for the allowance of emergency medical dispatching to make for a better accordance for those that live in the rural area, because obviously the further away you are from an ambulance station, the longer it takes to respond to them. National standards, 8 minutes, our average response is 9, but we cover a 590 square mile geographical area with that. The thought was to include emergency medical dispatch into the service. The Sheriff's Department provides 911 service throughout the county, with the exception of the cities of Osawatomie and Paola. In speaking with the sheriff back, and this goes back 6-7 years ago, with the volume of calls that they already had, the existing staff, and the inability to add staff, he had indicated that he would not be able to do it because those calls take longer. At that time frame, we contracted with the AMR, and they provided the service, and then have subsequently switched over to Johnson County and their emergency control center. I think some of you may know that Johnson County already services into the area through a contract for rural fire service in Miami County Rural Fire District number 2. They cover 72 square miles, have dispatched into that area ever since that arrangement's been put into place. So there was some logic in the aspect of the extension with that and not have overlap in the same geographical areas. So that's been in place for a period of time, and the surveying that Johnson County does on it for all of those that are put in a call to the dispatch center, those that respond back, it's been rated very highly from the users of that service. In terms of the physical existence of where the ambulances are located at, this goes back a number of years there when the county got into the business back, I believe, 1989 on it, then established the location out by Lang Chevrolet there at 327th Street and 169 Highway. There's 2 ambulance crews that are based there that service the Osawatomie and Paola areas with it, and then there's one that's in Lewisburg, and we lease space from the city of Lewisburg and their fire department, and the other crew exists in that spot. As we've talked about the jail and the possibilities of where it may or may not go, we've also talked about the inclusion of EMS ambulance bay in that, presumably in the city of Paola. With it, the city of Osawatomie is having a discussion concurrently there in terms of the creation of a new fire station. Our rural fire district houses a number of pieces of equipment in that facility and would be participating in the expansion or relocation of their fire station. If that comes about, they've expressed a desire in that. I think the one thing that you have to bear in mind, that, you know, of the calls that we run, and like in Paul's facility there at Miami County Medical Center, you know, historically we run about 600 transfer calls a year out of that facility. So you use that Paola ambulance to run those calls out of there and transfer them, you know, presumably to the Olathe Medical Center and back. The city of Paola would be on 0 status for a period of time on that, and you'd be serviced by the Osawatomie ambulance or the Lewisburg ambulance to come into your area, in addition to the calls that you normally make through that area. As it sits now, you know, we were able to respond from the 327th Street location in under the national response time of 8 minutes into the cities of Paola and Osawatomie, which comprise, you know, a considerable portion of our call volume with that. And then I think you'll start to get into the geographical type of dilemmas if you want to move an ambulance up and say pull the one out of Osawatomie if it's available to cover the city of Paola. Where are you going to put it? Oddly enough, 327th Street's about the halfway point. So for the investments that you made, and you come back to the facility that you're already in, you kind of have to research that out a little bit. So that's been part of the dilemma that we've faced. But it has been something that's been talked about quite a bit.